What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back, episode 48 of the Sicko Sports Podcast. Thank you for being here with me. Today is MMA Mondays. I know it's not Monday, it's Tuesday. Your boy got sick. I have a sore throat. I was getting kind of sick on Friday. The podcast that I put on Friday, after listening back to it when I was editing it, I was like, damn, man, I have a lot of throat clears, and you can tell that my throat was kind of messed up that day, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't until I decided to have a epic water fight with my son this past weekend. It was Sunday. I had told him he wanted like water guns and water balloons. I think he's starting to see the commercials start pop up on Nickelodeon and stuff. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm down, man. That was some of my funnest times. Some of the best memories I had when I was a kid was having water fights with my siblings, my mom, my dad, going outside getting smacked in the face with one of those. The ones that really sucked were the ones that looked like grenades. I don't know if you're in the age group where you can remember they were like water balloons, but they were shaped like grenades. Like they look like grenades. Them shits wouldn't pop, bro. You would get smacked in the face with those, and it was just like getting smacked in the face with a rock. Like I remember I got hit so hard on the side of my head, and the thing just bounced off of me, bounced off of the rock wall, and dropped on the floor. Never bursted, never popped. But we went to the store Sunday morning. We got breakfast. We went to the store. We got water guns, water balloons, everything. And we came here and we just did it outside in the front yard. We have a lot of grass in our front yard. So we just had a cool water fight, me and him, man. Nobody else, just us two. And we got soaked. Like, I got the hose out. Eventually, we ran out of water balloons. The water guns just weren't doing it enough. So I pulled out the water hose, started spraying them. We filled up this like 13-gallon storage container full of water. I dumped it on him. He wanted me to dump it on myself, so we dumped it on each other. It was awesome. It was so much fun. I had a great weekend with my son, but that isn't a good idea when you're already having a little bit of an illness. That's a bad idea when you feel like you might be getting sick already. So Monday morning, I woke up and I was like, oh shit, my throat was just gone, man. It was just done. I was coughing so much. It hurt to swallow. It hurt all day long. I was like, man, I can't do it like this. I sounded terrible. I tried. I recorded for a little bit and I was like, I sound god awful. So you're getting MMA Monday on Tuesday. It's not going to mess up the schedule, though. There'll still be a podcast Wednesday, tomorrow, and then one on Friday as well. So I'm sorry if my throat is a little bit raspy or if I am going to be, throat clearing a little more than I'd want to. Did try some, I took the precautionary things. I did what I had to do in terms of trying to get rid of it. I took some cough medicine yesterday. I took some NyQuil last night before I went to bed. I've been, popping cough drops in my mouth all day long. I got some chamomile tea. Shout out my mom. Every time you're sick, no matter what it is, you can, regardless of the disease, my mom tried to kill Corona with chamomile tea. So shout out to her. But that's what's in here, and hopefully that helps. Hopefully that keeps my throat all right. Hopefully I sound better today than I did Friday. I know I sound way better than I did yesterday. Yesterday was so bad. But hopefully that's what's going on, and I cannot have so many throat clears, and I can sound good today. But with all that being said, we're here. It's Monday, or it's Tuesday, but it's MMA Mondays, and there was a lot to cover. I haven't covered a few past events. I haven't done the Monday podcast. I've been doing them just on Fridays, but this week we're going to be back on track. So the cool thing is we have a lot to cover. We can pack in a lot in one show, and I really like that idea of it. I've gone back, and the one thing I don't want to do is fill time or be forced to a certain time frame. Like obviously, if you're trying to do a podcast like sub 25 minutes is never going to happen. That'd be a terrible podcast. A 15-minute, 20-minute podcast isn't a thing. That's more of just a YouTube video, which this is a podcast, not just a YouTube video, even though we exist on YouTube. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping it lengthy enough, but I don't want to force myself to hit any certain time frame, because one, I don't want to rush, which has rarely happened, but it has happened sometimes where I'm going through and I'm creeping up on an hour already, and I still have like 2 or 3 subjects left, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to push this to an hour 30 or beyond. So I kind of rushed through the last subjects, and I'm like, damn, there was a lot of good stuff that I wanted to get into and talk about. And I rushed myself because I was, just so into the subject matter. I was going on riffs and tangents on like the stuff beforehand. So I don't want to limit myself. But even more so than that, I don't ever want to fill time where I'm going through and I'm like, man, I'm only at 35, 40 minutes. I have to try to push this to close to an hour. So now I'm just going to basically repeat everything I'm saying in just different ways. I don't want to do that. That's the worst thing to do. So I'm not going to limit myself. I've tried earlier to like stay right around an hour, whether it's like 55 minutes or an hour and 5 minutes, like right in between that range. Now, if it's 45, it's 45. If it's an hour and 25, it's an hour and 25. I just want to make sure that it is as jam-packed with information or entertainment as possible. And if I can only do that in 45 minutes, then that it is what it is. If I need an extra, 25 minutes past hour to do it, then that's what I'm going to give you. But anyway, we're here. We're on the heels. Will Smith smacked up Chris Rock. We saw that. So since this is an MMA podcast, we're going to throw that in there as well. Will Smith, Chris Rock. I know you guys saw what happened already. Listen, I'm not going to give any type of take on it or anything at all. I just thought it was awesome. Shout out. A lot of people still think it was staged. I don't know, but what better thing to have? I don't even know. Was it the Oscars? I think it was the Oscars, right? It wasn't the Emmys Grammys, I think, is for music. Nobody watches this shit. Nobody watches this shit anymore. It's been dead, man. This thing has been played out for years. Like, it used to be cool way back in the days. Like, I remember my mom watching it when I was a kid. I remember, like, my older siblings watching it when we were young. Nobody watches this shit no more. It's so played out. Nobody watched the Oscars. More people watched Twitter and Facebook clips of that slap than they did nobody saw it live. Nobody saw it live. Everybody just saw the clips of it and was like, oh shit, and then it started going viral. Again, no opinion. I don't know, man. I feel bad for Chris Rock. I don't think he meant to hurt anybody's feelings. And I know he definitely didn't want to get smacked on stage in front of a live audience while he's hosting the Oscars. I know that's not what he had in mind. So sucks for Chris Rock, sucks for Will Smith, sucks for all parties involved. But shout out for the Oscars, man. If that's going to get anybody to tune in and watch, then that's what it's going to be. The ratings this year was probably so much better than any other year previously. The Oscars is dead. The Oscars is dead. So when it's like, oh, Will Smith did this, and you can't do that at the Oscars, and the Oscars are going to launch an investigation. Who gives a shit about the Oscars? Nobody gives a shit about these award shows. Nobody cares. We care more about the public Rotten Tomato ratings than we give a shit about the Oscars. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've never been like, oh, this movie won this Oscar? Oh, I'll watch it. Oh, they won an Academy Award for this or that? Okay, I'll watch it. No, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. All I do is just, hey, was it a good movie? I'm just going to trust my friends. I'm going to trust my family to tell me if it was a good movie or not. If somebody recommends a movie to me, all right, I'll check it out. Never have I ever been like, oh, I really want to watch this movie. Ooh, there's no awards. Nah, I'm not going to watch it. Or, ooh, what is this movie? It looks terrible, but it won some awards. Let me watch it. It's never happened. These award shows mean nothing anymore. But shout out to Will Smith and Chris Rock. The memes were hilarious. There's so many memes. The internet is so fucking fast, man. The internet will forever be undefeated. I saw Will Smith afterwards. Oh, another thing. Because I'm on Twitter quite a bit more than I am like on Facebook or anything else, the funniest shit to me, when things happen, the funniest thing to me isn't like the memes or what actually happened between Will Smith and Chris Rock. The funniest stuff to me is looking at people who are on Facebook who don't spend any time or may not even be on Twitter. Because people exist in different social media platforms. So it's very interesting to see when people don't know how another one operates or what to expect in a different platform. For example, on Facebook, I keep seeing the same Chris Rock tweet, and everybody's running with it. And everybody's like, oh, look at Chris Rock. He's so funny. This is what he said. This is what he said. Something about like my gums absorb the blow. Hey, guys, that's not a real account. That's not Chris Rock's account. That's a fake parody account. The little symbol that you're seeing that you think is a check mark isn't. I think it's like a 7 or something, a number 7. It's not a check mark. They do that for obvious reasons. Somebody probably created this account immediately when it happened, put out the tweet, and then it blew up and it had thousands and thousands of likes and retweets and all that stuff. But hey, man, I trip out. It makes me laugh every time. It makes me laugh just to see the way people from Facebook have no clue how Twitter operates. I see it all the time, and there'll be like Facebook groups or Facebook pages that are like reporter pages, right? It's people who are trying to start up reports, trying to start up their own like reporter thing or journalism thing, and they want to start their own blog and stuff like that. And no disrespect to them. That's awesome. I'm doing something similar with the podcast. Like, it's cool, man. It's the grind and, make it work. But you gotta be on Twitter. You have to know when you're getting duked. So it'll be like such and such news, not like Times or not like the LA Times or the New York Times or anything like that. Like, it's just such and such news where they only kind of exist on a Facebook page. And they'll post it like Chris Rock responds to Will Smith's slap, and they'll have the picture of the tweet from a fake account. I'm like, hey guys, that's not from him. He didn't say that. And I see it time and time again in the sports world. Like, I'll see it on the Facebook. There was one with a Dallas Cowboys page, and they have a pretty big following. They're a Dallas Cowboy page on Facebook, and they do like news and the headlines and stuff like that. And they had one was like Amari Cooper, where they're like, oh, Amari Cooper bashes Dak Prescott. Their relationship, is this why they split up? And I look at it, and they have a picture of a tweet. And the tweet was hilarious. Let me just say that the tweet was hilarious. The tweet did exactly what the tweet should do. And the tweet was something around the lines of like, it was a quote, spoke to Mark Cooper had this to say about Dak Prescott on the departure. And it was like, got into a heated argument. Amari Cooper called Dak Prescott the Black Kirk Cousins. And like, hey, that's fucking hilarious, dude. Even as a Dak Prescott fan, I can admit that's hilarious. The Black Kirk Cousins, that's pretty funny. But they were posting that as if that was really what happened. Like, they posted it as if that was a great source who had a direct quote from somebody within the organization. And I was like, don't know this guy. Doesn't seem to be verified. Let me go onto Twitter and look up this tweet. I find it. Hey, the guy has 150 followers. Hey, the guy has no connection to the Dallas Cowboys whatsoever. This is clearly intended to just make people laugh, and nothing taken away from the Twitter account. Like, you're not trying. He wasn't trying to make it seem as though he had some inside scoop or he's this fake reporter. He just wanted to be funny and make a funny tweet, and he did that. And if you look at the comments on Twitter, it's like, ha ha ha, a bunch of LOLs, a bunch of laughing faces. You got me. That was a good one. This is hilarious. Sharing it, whatever. It existed on Twitter the way it's supposed to exist, the way it was intended to exist. However, Facebook takes it, and all of a sudden we get this Dallas Cowboys news and fan page, and all of a sudden they're posting it as if it's realistic, and all the comments on there are, what did we tell you? Dak Prescott, nobody wants to play with him. Amari Cooper's tired of Dak. Dak Prescott's really Baker Mayfield. Amari Cooper didn't want to play with him. I'm like, hey guys, that wasn't really said. So that's the funniest shit, is when I see people that exist on Facebook that don't exist on any other social platform, the way they take things to heart and the way that they have no clue that they're getting duped by parody accounts. Like, that's the funniest shit to me. Other than that, on to some real MMA. Like I said, there's 3 events that we're going to talk about. The last 2 that passed that we didn't cover, between Curtis Blaydes and Chris Daukus, the fight night there, and then UFC London, which was fucking epic. And then we'll touch on UFC 273 that is coming up as well, Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie. We also, real quick before I get into those, I did want to talk about the One Championship. They had an event that came up. Listen, it's in Singapore, whatever it is, in China or somewhere in Asia. I ain't up that early. I think the event started like at 5, 6 in the morning. Hey man, I'm asleep. I'm not waking up for it. I'm just not. So I'll catch it after it happened. So I'm going to talk about the main event of that day, which was Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson and Rodtang. Rodtang is one of the most popular Muay Thai fighters you'll find. He is a guy who comes from that traditional Muay Thai type of way, that type of lifestyle, where he's in his 20s and he has 100+ fights, where it just seems like you fight every single week. Like, you just fight, man. In Muay Thai, you just don't stop fighting. You're always fighting. And it was a big spectacle. They put a new rule set for this fight, something that we've never seen done before. It was a 4-round fight. Each round was a different, well, not each round was a different rule set, but they switched up every other round. So round 1 was Muay Thai rules, round 2 was MMA rules, round 3 was Muay Thai, round 4 MMA. And I thought it was really cool. I didn't like the idea of 4 rounds. Having an even number of rounds makes it more likely for a draw, for a tie, and I don't want that. We obviously want to see a winner picked, but I think they were kind of just assuming, like, hey, it's going to be hard to imagine this fight going to the distance, especially with the advantages that they have in their respected rule sets. And it worked out. And then also another one that I was interested in that I had to go back and watch. I watched these after the fact. I did watch them in their entirety, but hours after they happened. The other one was Danielle Kelly. She's blowing up huge here. If you're a fan of MMA, if you're a fan of jiu-jitsu and grappling, you've probably seen her pop up from time to time. Gorgeous girl, beautiful, but has a black belt, insane on the ground. She's very popular in the jiu-jitsu world, and she signed to One Championship. This was her first event. It's a grappling match, which if you don't check out One Championship, like if you are up at certain times, and if you do want to check it out, it's pretty dope. Like they'll have an event, and within that event, they'll have grappling matches, they'll have Muay Thai matches, they'll have MMA matches, they'll have different types of rule sets within each match. And it's pretty dope to watch, man. You get a real collection of the mixed martial arts, where MMA is kind of like its own thing now, but in One Championship, you literally get to see different fights that are just specific rule sets in just a specific martial art. But she had her debut in grappling for One Championship. She ended up, I think it was a draw, a split draw, but she ended up getting a $50,000 bonus. And to see her emotion, to see her cry and be so happy, you can tell like this is a young girl who, she hasn't blown up yet. Like she's kind of blown up on social media in terms of who's covering her and who's, she popped up on my Snapchat feed from MMA. MMA Junkie did something on her. She's been put on the UFC like front page for like submission on their like grappling stuff. So she's blowing up in terms of popularity, but she's not getting any real residuals from that yet. Like she's not being able to cash that in yet. And I think this time you see her, like she's flying across the freaking world. You know what I mean? She's taken off all the way to Asia to try to take this next step in her chapter. She's young. She's in her early 20s, but she's taking the next step. And to see her get like a $50,000 bonus and be that emotional about it, good for her, man. I love Danielle Kelly. I can't wait to see her continue to do stuff that she's doing. And the reason I talk about her and not other jiu-jitsu people, right, in the jiu-jitsu world is because she has a legit, I guess, yearning. She has a legit interest in joining MMA and eventually getting her skill set to transition to MMA. She's tiny. I don't even think she can compete at 115 pounds right now. I think she weighed in at like 111 or 112 for that match. So she's going to have to put on some weight, which it's not that difficult to do, but she's going to have to put on some weight. And she's training right now. And the thing that I love to see from her is like most people, as soon as they see their picture and as soon as they start seeing headlines and storylines about them, they're like, I gotta go. And she's being patient with it. I think that's really smart. Take the next step in your jiu-jitsu game. Take the next step in terms of going and signing One Championship. I think is smart. And you do grappling matches there. Get as many wins as you can. And in the meantime, continue to do what she's doing, which is working on her kickboxing and working on her striking. And eventually, from One Championship, you could transition to MMA fights. Get a couple MMA fights. If it works out, all of a sudden you're 27, 28, 29, and now you can jump over to the big leagues. I think that's her path, and that's why I'm so interested in her. And like I said, man, anytime you have a girl that is doing these things and has that kind of credibility, and she's attractive, like, yeah, it's gonna garnish some more attention. But regardless of the fact, shout out Danielle Kelly, great job. And then the main event, like I said, Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson, and Rod Tang. It was really cool to watch. Mighty Mouse immediately in the first round, you can see that Rod Tang's game plan was like, hey, we don't really want to see this go into the MMA portion of it. So we don't want to see it get out of the first round. Heavy pressure, walk forward, heavy pressure on Demetrius Johnson. Landed a couple big shots. The first shot he landed, though, you can immediately see MMA instincts take over. He lands his first shot on Mighty Mouse, and he immediately shoots for like a takedown, and the ref stops him. He's like, oh, and he kind of looks around. He's like, what happened? And he's like, try to take him down. It's Muay Thai rules. And immediately Mighty Mouse was like, oh, yeah, my fault. But it's just funny to see, like, he knew going into it what the rule sets were. But just to see somebody's natural instinct take over, and nothing's going to bring out your natural instincts like getting cracked in the head. Like, that immediately, as soon as he got hit, he went for the takedown. They're like, whoa. And he just looked up. He's like, huh? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot. Okay, let's go. And credit to him, he survived round one. And I wouldn't even say survive. Definitely not survive. He put it on Rod Tang as well. They both landed shots. It was a tough round to score. I probably would have gave round one to Rod Tang because he was a little more aggressive in it. But they both traded shots. Like, they both landed some big blows. So I was impressed by both of their chins. But I would probably give round one to Rod Tang. And then round two, kind of what we would expect, a little anticlimactic because, we expect if it goes to MMA, that's the bigger question. We've seen Mighty Mouse before. We know Demetrius Johnson. He's not a terrible striker. You're talking about one of the greatest 125-pound fighters of all time in Demetrius Johnson, especially in terms of MMA. You're talking about one of the greatest 125-pound. You don't do that by just being a wrestler, just having good jiu-jitsu with no stand-up. He has knockouts. He's knocked people out before. This is what he does. He's not, he's a striker as well. He has great hands, and yes, he can wrestle, and yes, he has good jiu-jitsu. So he held his own in the first round for sure. But the big question is when we go into round two, this isn't Rod Tang's wheelhouse at all. And though Demetrius Johnson doesn't have a bunch of Muay Thai fights, he can exist in that world because every MMA fight starts standing up, and he's won many fights on the feet. So we didn't think, this was going to be so outmatched where it's like you got to kind of run away for an entire round. No, he stood there with him. He took some shots. Like I said, Rod Tang might have won the first round, in my opinion. But when they went into round two, what we thought would happen is what happened. Demetrius Johnson takes him down, gets to his back, and submits him rear naked choke. Shout out to Rod Tang because he didn't tap, dude. That's fucking nuts. To see a guy who isn't in that world of jiu-jitsu and wrestling and MMA, to see him get his back taken. He's trying to fight the hands. He's trying to do, and he did at one point fight the hand out and pull it out. So you can see that he knows what he's doing. But again, this is one of the greatest 125-pound fighters of all time. There's a big skill gap there from like whoever you're training with and your training partners and fucking Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. There's going to be a big gap between those guys. And once he took his back, got on him. But very impressed for the fact that he did not tap out. He just let himself go out, man. He went to sleep. Great sign of respect for each guy. After the fight, Rod Tang picked up Mighty Mouse, and they were, you can tell that they have a lot of respect for each other. And I'm interested to see Rod Tang continue to do something like this. Because when you see his striking, you're like, God, nobody really backs Mighty Mouse up like this. Nobody has Demetrius Johnson really, in that form where he's kind of like, man, I really don't want to try to trade with this guy too much. And Rod Tang has that ability. Rod Tang, if he goes into MMA, if he becomes an MMA fighter, he immediately has one of the best striking, especially in that division. Easily. Moving on from that to the UFC. UFC London a couple weeks ago. Like I said, I didn't do a recap of it the following week, so we're going to do it today. UFC London and my boy, Paddy the Baddy. Which also reminds me, I need to stop watching so much fucking UFC with my son, man. I need to stop watching so much. The other day, so again, this card happened 2 weekends ago. And the week after, we're downstairs And my son's playing with his toys or whatever, and I hear him kind of singing something. I'm like, what is he singing? It sounds familiar. And I walk over there, and he's playing with his toys, and he's going, "Oh, Paddy the baddie. Oh, Paddy the..." And I'm like, oh, I need to stop watching this. I need to stop watching this with him so much. I don't want him to become a fighter. I don't want him to want to fight. He wants to do jiu-jitsu really badly, and I love that idea, and I want to get him into training, and I want to get him into jiu-jitsu training, but I don't want my son to actually fight. I want him to be passionate and make a living on something that doesn't get him hurt. Fighting's not one of those things, but I love the fact that he does love it. And Paddy the Baddie is really that. That just shows you the kind of pool that this guy has, just from a marketing standpoint. That a kid that's 5 years old is singing his chant. You know what I mean? Saying his name and recognize his name. And yeah, because of me. There goes that fucking throat again. Yeah, it's because of me. But but this is his reach. This is what he does. This is why I think he has so much love and admiration, and why he has so much hatred and people rooting against him. And it's funny to me, he goes into this fight, he wins round 1. It's kind of similar of his first fight in the UFC, where he gets rocked early. He's the one that kind of gets put down first. The guy hits him. He kind of goes down. It wasn't a drop. I thought people, I saw people like, oh, he got dropped. He got rocked. It wasn't necessarily a drop. It's not like this guy cracked him and he sat him down. He cracked him, and Paddy was like, whoa, let me get to his legs. Let me get to him. Let me shoot for a takedown. It was a forced takedown from Paddy. It wasn't really a drop, but he did rock him for sure. Paddy Pimblett tries to get a takedown, doesn't get it. This guy ends up getting on top. Paddy ends up eventually getting back to his feet. Beautiful freaking throw. Just flying him through the air. Beautiful hip toss. Gets him down, and once he's on the floor, it's Paddy Pimblett's world. Gets to the back and wins via rear naked chokehold in the first round. And I see a lot of people talking and being extremely negative with Paddy Pimblett because of his first 2 performances weren't so dominant. And I think people are just forgetting, like, guys, not everybody comes into the UFC like Conor McGregor. Not everyone comes into the UFC like Hamza Chimaev. Not everyone comes into the UFC like Kamaru Usman. Not everyone comes in and does what Israel Adesanya does. Like, yes, those guys are going to be right. And the funny thing is, you'll ask these people that are like, oh, Paddy Pimblett, there's no substance behind it. He's all hype. He gets rocked. He gets hit too easily. He doesn't have what it takes. And you're like, oh, okay, that's fair criticism. If that's why you don't like him, if that's why you're not a fan of his, okay. So then you must be a fan of Khabib. You must be a fan of Usman. You must be a fan of Adesanya. Like, those are your favorite fighters. And they're like, no, I like Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor. And it's like, well, then who are you a fan of and who are you not then? You can't say you're not a fan of this guy because he doesn't really have the championship pedigree. So then you're only fans of guys who go undefeated or have these crazy long undefeated streaks. But then you're a fan of Nate Diaz, you're a fan of Conor, you're a fan of guys that everyone thinks right now has no shot at a championship. What are we talking about? What are we talking? You're a fan of Jorge Masvidal? Like, what are we talking about? It just makes no sense, man. The hatred is purely because of the recognition and popularity that Paddy Pimblett has, and he has it for a good reason. He's very charismatic. He says some funny shit, some outlandish shit as well. I think he needs to work on that, and he has been working on that, to not say things that are so offensive. And he's been working on that because there's old tweets and old stuff where you're like, Jesus, Paddy. But he's working on that. But very charismatic, good one-line type of guy, funny guy. The dance moves in afterwards. It's like, what is this dude doing? But the one thing that he has promised that he continues to back up, he says, I am never in a boring fight. His first fight wasn't boring. His second fight sure as hell wasn't boring. The guy is not in boring fights, man. And even if you feel, oh, he gets rocked, he gets hit too early, that doesn't mean that he still can't become a champion. Does that mean that he's a championship contender right now? No, yeah. It's hard to imagine him, especially in his weight class at 155. It's hard to imagine what happens if Michael Chandler hits him like that. What happens if Justin Gaethje hits him like that? What happens if Dustin Poirier hits him like that? What happens if Charles Oliveira gets a hold of him? Like, yeah, it's hard to imagine him right now. But who's to say that by the time he gets to the point where he's ready to be a championship contender, that Charles isn't already gone? that Poirier is not already gone. That Michael Chandler is not already gone. Like, we don't know when this is going to happen from. We act like Poirier and Chandler and Oliveira and all these guys are 27, 28. They're well into their 30s. There's some guys explode out the gates. Some guys come in hot, and it's just immediately ready for the takeover. Cody Garbrandt, the Conor McGregors, these guys where you're like, Jesus Christ, and they get that superstardom and they hit the pinnacle at a younger age. And then there's guys like Dustin Poirier who takes some bumps, who has some tough losses early on, and then eventually they figure it out and they get better and better and better. Charles Oliveira, better and better and better, and they end up being championship contenders. They end up getting to that point in their 30s. Paddy's not there yet. Paddy's years away from that. So to say, oh, he's not a championship contender right now, yeah, no shit. Which is why he's not ranked and he's not fighting ranked fighters. It's just weird notion that, like, we only want you to get hype when you're in the top 5. Like, nah, dude, enjoy the ride. That's what it's, like, do you wake up in the morning and you're just like, oh, I hope nothing good happens. I hope nothing out of the, I hope nothing extraordinary happens today. I hope I just walk out and do exactly what I did every single day before this day. I hope nothing cool happens. Like, no, man, I want to cheer for the excitement. I'm all on Khamzat Chimaev. I'm all on Sean O'Malley. I'm all on Paddy Pimblett. Why? Because we need younger guys to get to the point. We need new faces in that portion. And if it's a few years away, then we're a few years away. Khamzat's kind of a different story, but if we're a few years away from Sean O'Malley, if we were a few years away from Paddy Pimblett, oh well. We're a few years away, but I want to see the ride, man. I want that journey. I'm rooting for them. There's nothing better than when a hype train keeps winning. And you're like, hell yeah. It's why we love NCAA March Madness. It's why everyone's rooting for St. Peter's and everyone roots for the 15 seed and the little school, Loyola, Chicago, and all these little schools. It's why people root for the Colgates and all them. Because it's a hype train, and when they win, you're like, oh shit, you're all on the hype. No, they're not as good as North Carolina. No, they're not as good as Duke. No, they're not as good as Kansas. But damn it, you want to see them keep going. You want to see them keep winning. Because what if one of these days these guys hit gold? One of these guys win. And that's how you got to look at Paddy Pimblett and these dudes. No, they're not there. They can't compete. He can't compete with the Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira right now. But as long as he keeps winning and he has this popularity and this fame and the deal with Barstool and his face is kind of everywhere and his voice is very easily recognizable and he has this kind of charisma and charm to him, you want to see him keep winning, man. I want to see him get to that point and see what happens. His teammate also, viral moment, Molly Meatball McCann. I freaking love that girl, man. She's fucking awesome. I talk about the charisma of Paddy Pimblett and his, how good he is on the mic. Hey, Meatball's right there with him. Meatball's fucking dope, man. Like, this girl is awesome. She's great on the mic, and she's hype. She's all talk and all come forward. Exactly what I say is exactly what's going to happen type of girl. And she's awesome, man. Her win was freaking crazy. I was worried for her. I thought she was gassing herself out early. She came out of the gates hot, landed some big shots, pressed forward, started looking for a finish. And I was like, oh, man, if she doesn't get the finish here, she might gas herself out. She might be tired going into round 2, round 3. And it kind of seemed like it was kind of getting that way. But shout out to her cardio, her strength and conditioning. It was off the chain because when she got into round 3, all of a sudden, I think it was round 3. Could have been round 2. Might have been round... I could have sworn it was round 3. But she sets up this beautiful spinning elbow and just cracked the opponent, man. That poor girl, legit. Even Paddy Pimblett afterwards was like, I was a bit concerned for her. It looked really bad, and it did. Like, when she hit the floor, like, her arms were kind of flopping all over the place, and she was just eyes rolled back, out cold. But a viral moment, one of the best knockouts you'll see in the UFC, especially from the women's division. So shout out to Molly Meatball McCann. She just signed a deal with Barstool Sports, which brings me to here's the thing. Everyone's talking about the pay for the UFC. And Paddy Pimblett, there was rumbles and there's talks about what he made, that he was on a 12 and 12, meaning $12,000 to show, an extra $12,000 if you win. So you can make up to $24,000. And I see a lot of people trying to defend that, saying, well, yeah, man, this is the second fight in the UFC. He's unranked. He's a prospect. This is what prospects get paid. Except he's not a prospect. A prospect is somebody who the UFC wastes money on. Well, not waste, but we're spending. We are investing in you, meaning whatever we pay you for your first couple fights, we're not getting that money back in return because you're not selling any pay-per-views, because nobody knows who you are. Nobody recognizes you. Nobody knows you. You have your friends and family. That's it. You're not a big name. You're not a draw. So if we give you a 10-10, if we give you a 12-12, if you give you a 15-15, we're not getting that money back. If you win your fight and you make $20,000 to $30,000, you aren't selling $20,000 to $30,000 worth of pay-per-view. You are not selling $20,000 to $30,000 worth of ticket sales. You're not getting us our money back. We are putting money into you. We are losing money on you. We make our money on Kamaru Usman. We make our money on Colby Covington. We make our money on Conor McGregor, on Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, the champions, the guys at the top. We make our money on those guys, not you. Paddy Pimblett is not in that boat. Watch UFC London. Watch when Paddy Pimblett hits, and you tell me that he did not make the UFC much, much, much more than $24,000 to $30,000. When you're making the company that much money, you have to be paid for it. So the fact that he's not, it's a damn shame, and he needs to be. And I know he's not negotiating it. I know it's his manager that's negotiating it. He signed to Barstool Sports, who don't represent him. They don't act as his agent. He's basically a Barstool ambassador, and they pay him to do things with Barstool Sports. So it kind of leads me to that situation. It's like, all right, anybody's always taught, whatever you make your money in, that's what you do for a living, right? I can sit here and say I'm a rapper, but if I don't make any money rapping, I can spend all my time rapping. But if I don't make any money rapping, I'm not a rapper yet, right? I can sit here and say I'm a podcaster, but if I'm not making a living podcasting, I'm not a podcaster yet. So if Paddy Pimblett is fighting in the UFC, and that's the least amount of money he's making from any other thing that he's doing, then what is he? Is he a Barstool Sports ambassador who happens to fight in the UFC? No, obviously we claim his recognition. His recognition, his popularity stems from MMA, stems from fighting. He is a fighter. So why is he making more money to be an ambassador? Why is he making more money to do ads and streaming and doing all these other things? Why is he making more money doing that than the thing that brings the most eyeballs, which is to the UFC and to MMA? He needs to get paid for it. He needs to get paid for it. And right now, he's quiet on it. He seems like he's cooling. So it's cool, man. If he's cooling, it's cool. But eventually, he knows he's got to get paid. He's got to get paid. And it's going to happen, hopefully. If not, this whole UFC and fighter pay and stuff is going to blow up. And it could blow up in huge portions if we find out that Paddy Pimblett is bringing in all these eyeballs, bringing in all this cash flow, and he's not getting rewarded for it. So hopefully there's some kind of like under the table shit that's going on, which who knows, there might be, because he's not vocal about it. He's not complaining about it. It was other people that are complaining. It was people that saw the numbers and said, "Oh, Paddy, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm cooling." So maybe there's some shit going on. Hopefully that's the case. Arnold Allen, his win over Dan Hooker. I feel terrible for Dan Hooker. Arnold Allen's a real monster. He's a killer. The dude is amazing. But you saw Dan Hooker, and he sliced through him, man. He cut through Dan Hooker with ease. Dan Hooker fought back. He does what Hooker does. Fight. Sorry, there's not supposed to be a joke in there. There's a joke in there somewhere, but it's not supposed to be. But Dan Hooker does what Dan Hooker does and fights back, even though he was getting rocked, man. He was getting hurt so bad early in that first round. He lands a couple of shots back himself. Then it becomes a back and forth for a little bit, and then Arnold Allen just continues to wear on him, ends up getting the win. When you look at Dan Hooker, you see his knockout against Michael Chandler. You saw the way he lost to Islam. He moves down to 145, and you go, listen, this was a big, lanky dude at 155. It's even that much greater at 145. Maybe this is going to be a good weight class for him. And then he just gets demolished by Dan Arnold. So now you're saying, or from Arnold Allen, I'm sorry, Dan Arnold. From Arnold Allen, so now you're saying, all right, what's next for Dan Hooker, man? Where does he go from here? I saw some memes Again, the internet is always undefeated. It's ruthless. I started seeing memes of Dan Hooker with a freaking wig and Photoshop Dan Hooker as a woman and was like the next transgender athlete. And I was like, shit, Dan, you ever want to touch gold, man? This might be the way. You start the transition, Dan. Let's get you a belt. But in all seriousness, I don't know what's going on with Dan Hooker. Or I know what's going on. I just don't know what the fix is, man. I don't listen, Arnold Allen's a beast. I'm not saying that Dan can't win fights at 145. He sure can. But it's just, how long do we want to do this? Especially when you're getting TKO'd, when you're getting finished, when you're getting beat up that bad. And then you feel even worse because you see, because of the rule sets in New Zealand, he can't see his family for a period of time before the fight and after the fight. And you always see the videos of him being reunited with his daughter and his wife. And it's like, damn, dude, to be gone that long, to have to step away from your family for that time frame. And then you come back and it's like, you come back after a devastating loss in another fight where you lost in the first round, and it's tough to see. It's tough on Dan. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the family. I feel bad for what his future holds. When I look at him right now, I can't see it. Can I see him continuously, getting more fights and being like a Donald Cerrone type of guy where it's like, hey, he's not an easy fight for anybody, but he's never going to touch gold. Yeah, I can see that. Is that what Dan Hooker wants? Probably not. If you can just see how Dan Hooker talks, how he approaches fights, how he does everything, you would assume that is not what he wants at all. So I hope there's something else, man. What would be awesome if I found out? The coolest shit for me would be to find out that Dan Hooker has some other thing that he's working on. Like he ends up making a lot of money outside of the UFC. That would be my hope for Dan Hooker. I know people are probably going to disagree with me. Fans, of course, if you're a fan of Dan Hooker, you'll be like, oh, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. He's still an elite fighter. I get it. I'm not saying that he can't still fight at a high level. I'm not saying that he can't still get wins in 145 or 155 for that matter. But what I'm saying is, if his heart was set on being a champion, he thought going down to 145 would do it for him, and he loses like that, I don't know what his mindset is. And if his mindset is like, damn, I can't do this anymore, then I just hope that his life after fighting is just as dope as his life as a fighter. Moving on, Tom Aspinal, Volkov, Aspinal, another incredible showcase. And of course, just like everybody else, man, as soon as you are a heavyweight and as soon as you start getting some stuff going, you're going to be recognized. You're going to be talked about. You're going to be the one to beat Francis Ngannou now. And now everyone talks about Tom Aspinal being too fast and too elusive and too well-rounded for Francis Ngannou. And he might be. Who knows? But let's chill out. I saw him talk about Stipe was in the crowd. Talk about Cyril Gane. I think he called out Cyril Gane and said, let's do an interim fight because we know Francis is out with a knee injury. Again, Francis is out with a knee injury that he got before the fight with Cyril Gane. The other dude that was supposed to be too fast, too quick, too powerful, and too elusive, too well-rounded for Francis Ngannou to handle. He fought him with one knee and beat him. So let's chill out with Tom Aspinall being just the guy that's going to dethrone Francis Ngannou like it's no problem. Chill out with that. But to have an interim title fight is cool, except what happens with Stipe? If you want to have an interim title fight, why not Stipe and Aspinall? Whoever wins that fight can fight Cyril Gane. Or maybe even they fight, Francis and Cyril Gane gets somebody else. There's a lot of, I think, Tai Tuivasa and somebody are going to fight. But it's going to be... Does Stipe have Thai next? Let me see. Let me actually check up right now. I know it's going to take away. If you're in audio, I apologize. This is going to take away from it. But I have to know because I think Stipe already has a fight lined up. So if he does, that would be awesome. And then obviously, the one thing that... The one person that can solve all of these issues, the one person is Jon Jones. Jon Jones can come in and fix all of it. So it doesn't have it. I thought I saw something like that, but it's not posted on here. You also have Curtis Blades in the mix, who got a huge win as well. We'll talk about that coming up. But there's a lot of guys in the mix right now. Tom Aspinall is coming up. Curtis Blades doing his thing. Stipe still needs to come back. And John Jones, are you going to fight a heavyweight or not, man? Because if you are, you clear a lot of this shit up. If John Jones was going to fight at heavyweight, you clear a lot of this shit up. All of a sudden, John Jones comes back, and it's immediately John Jones versus whoever, and that's who's going to fight Francis next. And you can have someone like Aspinall and Blades fight next, and then the winner of that can go on and fight. Like, you have so many things cleared up if John Jones comes back. So many things would be cleared up if John Jones and Stipe came back, and it was just like a clear, whoever wins this fight is fighting Ngannou next. That would clear up so much shit, because now it's Gane versus Aspinall, or Blades versus Gane, or Blades versus Aspinall. And then you can start clearing some stuff up. You start seeing paths for these guys where now all of a sudden you look at someone like Aspinall and Blades, say, okay, clearly you have 2 more fights. You know what I mean? 2 more fights before you get your title shot. And then Stipe, you get the fight that you need to get you back to the title shot, because it's not fair that you lost. You just lost a bout, and it's like, we're going to put you 3 fights. You got to go win 2 or 3 to get back to a title fight. So John Jones will clear a lot of the shit up if or when he decides to come back. We don't know. So you just got to kind of interim here, interim there. I guess we put these 2 fights together. I don't know. And then moving on to last weekend, UFC Blades versus Daukus. That was a good one. That was a really good fight night. I think it went kind of under the radar with it. I'm not going to get too much in depth. I'll talk about a couple fights. I want to start off with the Kai Kara-France and Askar Askarov fight. That was one where Kai Kara was a huge underdog, plus 340 coming in. He came off of a knockout to Cody Garbrandt, and a lot of people had Askar winning because of his wrestling pedigree, and Kai Kara's not great as a wrestler, but you can see the dude is well-rounded, man. And again, you see this City Kickboxing where you just go, City Kickboxing being Kai Kara's gym, and also the gym of Israel Adesanya, where you just keep seeing these guys and you go, oh, they can't defend takedowns. That's not what they do. They're the kickboxers. They can't defend takedowns. And you see them in their weight classes, and they're like, hey, they're not that easy to take down, man. Like, they know how to defend takedowns. Adesanya is not easy to take down. Will he get taken down? Yes. If you're a good wrestler, especially, or if you're Jan Blachowicz, would have a huge size advantage, yeah. But if he's in his weight class, you saw the troubles a lot of guys had to not only take him down, but to keep him down. And to see Kai Kara-France get taken down, get his back taken, and defend and defend and defend, and have really good submission defense throughout that first time. And as soon as it went to the feet, you saw the clear advantage that Kai Kara had over Askarov. You see the confidence in Askarov almost immediately. Like, the meme of Deontay Wilder that people always post, like, what happens when somebody, you know what I mean? It's like, I think they posted it a lot for the Khabib and Justin Gaethje fight. Like, Khabib's face when he shoots for his first takedown and doesn't succeed, and he's like, like, that's what you saw with Askarov, where you start seeing him, you're like, oh shit, like, this guy, he's in trouble, man. Like, he can lose this fight. It ends up going to decision. Kai Kara-France ends up winning by decision. His takedown defense in the second, and especially the third round, was unbelievable. You can tell that Askarov started to get a little depleted. He started to not feel as confident anymore on the feet. He started kind of forcing takedown attempts. And when you start doing that, it makes it easier for that guy to succeed in his takedown defense. It makes him succeed in his ability to stuff those takedowns. So shout out Kai Kara-France. I've been seeing now that Figgy wants to fight Kai Kara next. He doesn't want to fight Brandon Moreno, which, man, Deiveson Figueiredo is one of the most interesting characters you're going to find in the UFC. He is so interesting. He claims now that he doesn't want to fight Brandon Moreno because he doesn't think he deserves to fight him again, because Brandon Moreno's team made racist comments and stuff, which they were out of hand, and this was a long time ago, and they addressed that a long time ago. But he's saying he doesn't want to do that. Now, that's cool, Figgy. In his post, he says something around the lines of, like, we have to move forward, and I'm anti-racism, we're trying to fight racism in my country and all that. Okay, that's cool, Figgy. Except, he then calls out Kai Kara-France by calling him a dirty Kiwi, or a filthy Kiwi. Hey, man, what are you talking about? So it seems like you just really, really don't want to fight Moreno again. It seems like you just don't want to do it. And I don't blame you. That would be the 4th time, fighting somebody 4 times. And not only the 4th time in a row. They haven't fought anybody besides each other. Now, if they fight this time, it would be 4 straight fights, and it's just against each other. So yeah, that's pretty exhausting, man. To go through 4 straight training camps for one guy, I can see why you wanna fight somebody else, or you wanna fight somebody different, but if they feel like it's unresolved, if the UFC feels like there's no one that they wanna put there right now besides, Brandon Moreno, then you're gonna have to fight Brandon Moreno, man. Like, it's gonna have to happen, which means Kai Kara, maybe he fights one more time, or maybe he just sits out and he's gonna get the winner of that, and he's gonna be able to fight for a title. Either way, I'm very proud of Kai Kara France. His fight against Cody Garbrandt was awesome, man. His knockout against Cody was huge. I mean, he was an underdog there too, if I'm not mistaken, and then a huge underdog against Askarov. So anytime somebody's just beating these odds, I'm gonna root for him big time. Matt Brown, Brian Barberena, fight of the night. Not gonna get too much into detail about that fight, but only I'm gonna say that shit was awesome. Like, it was one of the best fights you'll see. Both dudes were just chin on both of them, man. The shots they took, bloodied up, just grueling. Then the takedowns and having to fight for takedowns and defend takedowns and still be able to push the tempo in the third round and still be able to throw strikes and absorb hits. Take one and give one, and it's back and forth. The fight was like a Peter Griffin against the chicken. Like, that's what the type of fight was for them, man. It was a ass kicking for both guys. Both guys won and both lost. Brian Barberena ends up getting the split decision victory over Matt Brown. He was really cool. I think he handled the crowd and everything really awesome. I know I spoke before about Casey O'Neill when she fought Mata Ferry, and how I liked the fact that she was like, fuck you too then if you guys are going to boo me. Listen, I'm cool with you just being yourself. Like, just if that's what comes out, that's awesome. Like, I feel it, man. You just want a big fight and everyone's booing you and it sucks and you don't feel like you did anything for them to hate you. So I feel why you would have that aggression, and definitely nothing taken away from Casey O'Neill. I don't dislike the way she handled that situation. But to see Brian Barberena and to see like his composure and his professionalism, the crowd's booing him. They're at Matt Brown's home. A lot of them probably felt like Matt Brown won, and now they're booing Brian Barberena because he won by split decision, and he handled it greatly. He was like, "Hey, I love Matt Brown. I understand why you guys are booing me. He's your boy, and I have so much respect for him. He's the shit. I just want to say, boo me all you want. I still love you. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this and be here. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate Matt Brown." It's like, yeah, that's dope, man. That's really cool to see somebody handle it like that. I think Brian Barberena is going to gain a lot of fans. Maybe not in the building that night, but outside from all this, people watching the fight. I think he probably gained more fans than he probably thought at that moment. And then Alexa Grasso, my girl, man. I love Alexa Grasso. I love her, man. She's freaking awesome. Great stand-up game. Joanne Wood has unbelievable stand-up game as well. And Alexa has no submissions in the UFC until this fight. Subbed her in the first round, got to the back, rear naked choke in, and finished off the job. Shout out Alexa Grasso. She is starting to become that complete fighter, and I love this wave of Mexican fighters, man. When I just get so excited when I see Alexa Grasso and Aldana and Moreno, and even guys that aren't from, even the people that like aren't from Mexico, like the Brian Ortega, um all of them, man. Like all these Mexican fighters that I get to see is dope for me. So when I see Alexa Grasso do her thing, it makes me extremely happy. Shout out Alexa Grasso to get that win. And then the last fight, Curtis Blades, Chris Daukus. Curtis Blades, I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing Chris Daukus right now. Like, I definitely don't want to be the guy for it. But when he got the fight with Derek Lewis felt a bit disrespected. Derek Lewis felt like there's no reason why Chris Daukus should be fighting him at that point. And I agreed 110%. So Chris Daukus before that had beaten Parker Porter in round 1. He beat Rodrigo Ferreira in round 1. And then he beat, Jesus Christ, Shamil Abdurakhimov in round 1. Or round 2 KO. So that's why he got that fight, because of the way he was finishing guys in round 1, round 2, all by TKOs or KOs. That's what's going to get you that fight. But these names, they're not top guys. So when they got Derek Lewis felt disrespected, and I did too. I was like, why is he fighting Derek Lewis? Derek Lewis is a fucking monster, man. Like, they can't give him someone else. There's no one else in that. You're telling me there's no person between Abdul Ramakov. His name is really hard. There's nobody in between him and Derek Lewis. That's a giant leap. That's a giant jump. And he goes and gets knocked out by Derek Lewis in round 1. And you can see that fight. Derek Lewis had zero respect for him. Zero. Derek Lewis pushed forward and was just like, hey, crack me if you want now. I have no respect for you. I'm going to come forward and take your fucking head off because I feel like you're just not on this level. So when you go from there, your next fight is Curtis fucking Blades, who, yeah, Derek Lewis beat Curtis Blades. I get that. But watch the fight again. Curtis Blades was winning that fight. Curtis Blades is more skilled than Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis just caught him. Derek Lewis has an underrated fight IQ. And he was just waiting. And even Derek Lewis said after the fight, I was just hoping and praying that I timed this uppercut right on the shot. When he shot for a takedown, all I was doing was praying that I landed this uppercut at the right time. I was praying on one shot. I was praying on one punch. That's it. And it landed. And cool, I got the dub. But Curtis Blades was moving much better. He had Derek Lewis backing up. He was beating him on the feet. Like, Curtis Blades could have won that fight if he just kept it on the feet. He lost by knockout, but it's because he went for a takedown and Derek Lewis threw a perfectly timed uppercut. But Curtis Blades was winning that fight, and that's who Chris Daukus gets next. I hated the fight for Chris Daukus. I hated it. Curtis Blades is a minus 510 for a fucking reason. I hated that fight for Daukus. And, Daukus got knocked out in round 2, right at the start of round 2. Curtis Blades puts a beautiful performance on, which is good for Curtis, man. The last thing I needed was for Curtis to lose, because I think Curtis does have skill sets to beat and make a lot of these top guys sweat, man. His ability to wrestle, and he's not bad on the feet. Like, he's not terrible. He doesn't want to take a shot from Francis, for sure. Cyril Gane's a little too Tom Aspinal a little bit, but when you mix in his wrestling pedigree, it's like, it's interesting. It's interesting. So I didn't want Curtis Blades. The reason I needed Curtis Blades to win is because he makes those fights interesting. If Chris Daukus were to somehow, some way land a fucking lucky shot or somehow get a win over Curtis Blades, it's like, all right, he gonna beat Aspinall. He gonna be Gane. He's gonna be Stipe. He's gonna be Ngannou. I don't think so, man. Like, it is very, very far-fetched to imagine him winning those fights. And then jumping forward, we'll wrap it up with UFC 273, a little bit of a preview that's coming up this weekend. This was supposed to be Volkanovski Holloway. Holloway ended up pulling out of the fight. I think they pushed it back like a week or two and then found a replacement in the Korean Zombie. This card is so interesting because the 3 main events of this one, right, the last 3 fights of the night, and especially the 2 title fights, are so heavy. The odds are so skewed in one direction, like heavy favorites. I mean, we started the third to last fight, Khamzat Chimaev, Gilbert Burns. Khamzat's a minus 525. Minus 525 against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is a plus 385. Gilbert Burns wasn't this much of an underdog when he fought for the championship bout against Kamaru Usman. He fought Usman and wasn't this much of an underdog. And when he fought Usman, he's the last person, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Colby dropped Usman. Gilbert Burns is the only person to drop Usman during Usman's entire time, his big run. Gilbert Burns probably gave us the biggest scare of like, oh shit. Colby obviously had the best fights and made him as competitive, and a lot of people thought Colby won the last one. And they felt that he was winning the first one. Sure, you could feel that way. But Gilbert Burns is the person that hit him, that got a good enough shot on Kamaru that made you go, oh shit, he might lose this. He gave you that moment. He gave us the biggest moment of Kamaru Usman not being the champion anymore. The biggest moment, the biggest freak out. Even though he may not be Colby Covington, I'm not saying he's a bigger threat than Colby Covington is. It's very similar to like Ortega and Volkanovski and Holloway and Volkanovski. Even though people feel like Holloway won one of those against Volk, Ortega gave you the biggest moment of, oh shit, he might win this when he had that guillotine in. Where you're like, oh fuck, he's gonna win. Like Volkanovski's really gonna lose this, and then he didn't. But he gave you that moment. That's what Gilbert Burns did against Usman. When he dropped him in the first round, he gave you that moment of like, oh crap, he could have this. So to be a plus 385 against somebody who's not ranked in the top 10, Khamzat's ranked 11th. Gilbert Burns is ranked number 2 in the world, man. And Khamzat, again, it's the Chris Daukus thing, where Different from Chris Daukus, though. But in the terms of, like, he's fighting the number 2 ranked guy, not because of who he's beat, because of the way he's beaten them. It's not close. It's just, these guys look like they're, in his class. It looks like he's the freaking teacher and they're a new student and he's just beating them up for the first week. Like, that's what Khamzat's making it look like against the guys that he's fought. His biggest fight was Li Jiangliang, the leech, and he just fucking destroyed him, man. Just walked through him. Just picked him up, put him on the floor, worked it a little bit. He had a good defense for a little bit, and then just eventually subbed him. And Khamzat's like, I'll be Gilbert Burns either way. I'll wrestle him, I'll sub him, I'll knock him out, whatever. I'll smash him any way he wants to get smashed. Any way I want to smash him is how I'll smash him. And listen, that's not me saying that Khamzat shouldn't be favored in this fight. I am all on the Khamzat train. I think he's going to beat him. But a minus 525? Jesus, a 5-1 freaking favorite? Gilbert Burns plus 385? Golly, the disrespect for Gilbert Burns. And I think I know why Vegas is doing this, obviously. I think Vegas there's a lot of money coming in early on Khamzat. So that's what made the odds be so skewed one way. And obviously they need more money to come in on Gilbert Burns. I think Vegas knows Khamzat's going to win this fight, or they think Khamzat's going to win this fight. So they need some way that Gilbert Burns is going to get some traction. And what better way than to do a freaking, plus 385? It's almost, you look at this and you're like, I just got to throw something on Gilbert. Like, the disrespect Gilbert Burns is getting here, I got to throw some money on him. And that's what Vegas wants. Yeah, throw 20. Fuck it. Plus 385, throw $20 on it. And then they just rake that shit in when Khamzat wins. And then the next fight on that card, Aljamain Sterling, Petr Yan. Aljamain the champion, Petr Yan's the challenger, because of the disqualification that they had in their first fight that got Aljamain Sterling the bout. Petr Yan looked like he was about to finish him. The fight was about to be wrapped up. Aljamain had nothing left. Went to his knees, was down on the floor. Petr Yan throws a stupid knee. Very illegal. Gets disqualified for good reasons. I hate when people are like, oh, Aljamain took the sucker's way out and it's a fake. Nah, man. The fact that you would even have to put it on Aljamain to whether he wants to fight or not is bullshit. They should have immediately saw the impact of it, because it was a fucking knee. Whether you feel like he could have kept continuing on or not is not the point. The point is that Yan hit him with an illegal strike and it landed fucking flush. As soon as that happened, the ref should have just called it off. It's over. It's over, man. You landed a flush fucking shot on him with an illegal strike. It's a wrap. Right in the temple. It's a wrap. Even if we feel like he's faking it, oh, I'm lying here on the floor, and we feel like he's a bad actor, he might be, but that shouldn't be on him. It should be on the referee to say it's a wrap. You lost your bout. Doesn't mean you weren't winning the fight. Doesn't mean you won't win the rematch, but you lost your bout here. And that's why Petr Yan minus 425. This one you can kind of understand more so because of how dominant he was in their first fight. But again, it's a championship fight that the champion is a plus 320. When the fuck do we ever see that? The champion being a plus 320 in a championship fight. The champion. So it just makes it interesting. And then last but not least, Volkanovski, the replacement for Max Holloway, was the Korean Zombie. He got there kind of off of no one else being available, right? Korean Zombie lost to Ortega, who then fought Volk, and that fight already happened. And Volk and Holloway were supposed to happen again, and that didn't work out. And you got guys that are kind of out or still locked up in other fights. So the Korean Zombie gets the call, and he gets the fight, and he's a plus 400. Volkanovski is a minus 550. They are giving no hope to the Korean Zombie. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know why. I just have a weird feeling that something weird is going to happen. I think Volk's a much better fighter. I think he's well-rounded. I think Volk wins this fight in all aspects, whether it's in the wrestling department, on the ground, stand-up. I think Volk's just all-around a better fighter in every single category. But who knows, man? Korean Zombie lands some crazy shit, and we never know. We never know. But I just wanted to point out those three fights because of the odds, because of how crazy these odds are for the three main fights of the card, especially the championship fights, to be minus 550, minus 425, minus 525. It's like, Jesus Christ. We also have Mackenzie Dern and Tisha Torres on this card. I like both girls. Mackenzie Dern Hey, UFC, pick a fucking better picture than this, man. Why does Mackenzie Dern look like ET in this thing? This is a terrible picture. I'm gonna put somewhere here, here, here. I'm gonna put pictures of Mackenzie Dern so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And I'm gonna take, you guys will be able to see the screen recording here of Mackenzie Dern. Hey man, she's a lot prettier than that. Mackenzie Dern's a beautiful lady, and she looks like fucking macking me on this picture. Like, did she just get in a fight? Did y'all take this immediately after a fight? Why does she look at all the other pictures of like Gilbert Burns and Hamzat and all these dudes? Like they all look cool. Mackenzie Dern looked like she just got beat up. Why are you doing this to her? She's beautiful. Again, I'm sure you guys I've already input the pictures of her. She's a beautiful girl and she looks terrible. But she fights Tecia Torres. That's going to be a really interesting fight. Mackenzie Dern is black belt extraordinaire jiu-jitsu practitioner. She's amazing on the ground. In my opinion, the best there is to offer in terms of the female division when it comes to the ground game. If she gets you on the ground, it's over, man. It's fucking over. But she lost her last fight to Marina Rodriguez. Rodriguez did a great job. Mackenzie Dern, you can see the struggles that she has in the wrestling department, right? If you're great with jiu-jitsu, if you're phenomenal on the ground, you have to get the fight there. Unless you're fighting some wrestler, somebody who wants to exchange in that with you, you have to get the fight there. And Marina Rodriguez was just so lanky, so tall, so strong. She did a really good job, and it made you question Mackenzie Dern's wrestling ability. The fact that she wasn't able to get those takedowns against Marina, she ends up lighting her up. Mackenzie loses that fight. Now she fights Tecia Torres, another girl who's well-rounded, a veteran in the game, man. Tecia has been doing this for a long time. She is well-rounded, more of a striker, especially now, but well-rounded fighter in general, but a lot smaller and doesn't pack as heavy as a punch as a Marina Rodriguez does. So Mackenzie Dern should have more success getting inside, getting to her body, instead of having to shoot for these kind of far-outed kind of double legs and shoot down to the legs. She might be able to just get to her body and work trips and takedowns of tosses and trips, inside, outside leg trips. So it's going to be interesting if Tecia can keep this fight standing up. She just still has the advantage in the stand-up game. Mackenzie Dern's striking just has not caught up to the rest of her game. And her wrestling pedigree, that Marina fight kind of made you question whether she's a good enough wrestler to get the fight to the ground. But that'll be telling against Tecia Torres. If she can take Tecia down, if she goes to the ground, she's subbing her. Like I said, Mackenzie's fucking top-notch, nobody better. So if Mackenzie can get Tecia to the ground, she's subbing her. But we have to see what her wrestling pedigree is, because Ticia's not some slouch. She's not some shitty wrestler herself. She can defend takedowns. So this will be very telling. And then Calvin Gastelum. It was supposed to be Imavov. If I'm not mistaken, that fight got canceled. But I want to say that last night Gastelum posted something about them finding him a replacement opponent that he is still going to fight. I haven't seen yet. I haven't been on my phone yet. It's still early in the morning. But I'm sure you'll see the update that whoever his opponent is. I talked about Irene Aldana earlier. She fights Aspinal. I'm going for Aldana, obviously. Freaking awesome fighter, man. I love her as well. She's dope. I hope she beats Aspinal. I like Aspinal. I don't think against her at all. Sweet girl and everything, but Irene Aldana's just, I'm going for her. Ian Gary, another hype train. He wasn't on that UFC London card, which I think would have been dope if he was. But another one of these like Conor McGregor products, man. Another guy who, he's from Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. And Conor had kind of, not taken him under his wing. I don't think he like trains with Conor and like he's part of that camp or anything. But you can see the motivation. You can see the inspiration that Conor McGregor is to him. He had a picture when he was young, and Conor was even younger, and he's taking a picture with Conor, and he's the reason why I wanted to do this. So it's dope to see it. He's a minus 255. That one's gonna be dope. Anthony Hernandez and Duplessis is on this card, on this prelim. That could be fight of the night. I'm telling you guys right now. Duplessis and Anthony Hernandez could be the fight of the night. And then Rosenstrike and Marcin Tybura. That's gonna be a really good one. This is a fight where Rosenstrike cannot lose, man. Rosenstrike for a while was at that type of, could this guy be the next guy? He was looking like it. His striking was really good, and then he just had some bad losses. What Francis Ngannou did to him should be illegal. I mean, you talk about no respect. I talked about what Derek Lewis did to Daukus. Francis Ngannou even had a less respect for Rosenstrike. Francis Ngannou's like, I'm not even gonna work any type of technique. I don't give a shit about anything. You're a bitch, I'm gonna kill you. That's basically how Ngannou took that fight. And I'm just like, golly, man. So for him to have a couple losses since then, and now he fights Tybura, who's not some pushover. He's not a slouch. If he loses that fight, it's going to be very hard for me to imagine Rosenstruck doing much of anything in that division from here on out. But that wraps it up. UFC 273. We covered the UFC Fight Nights, UFC London, and Blades and Daukus. And then, obviously, a look ahead. I'll be back on Wednesday. So tomorrow, I keep thinking this is Monday because I'm recording. But I'll be back tomorrow. We'll get into some NBA talks. We'll get into March Madness talks, heavy on basketball. And then Friday, we'll get into what's going on around the NFL and what's to come. A lot of moves. We'll deep dive into teams. We'll talk a little bit about the NFL draft. We'll heavy NFL talks as we do on Football Fridays, and then obviously look back a week from now, Monday, to recap this UFC 273 card. But that's a wrap for today, guys. Again, I'll see you tomorrow for some NBA, for some basketball talk, as well as, the NCAA March Madness and all that good stuff. So I'll see you guys. Have a great day. Peace.